Hey guys, I wanted to make a quick video on how I make corner clamps. These are so useful, especially like, for example, let's say you're putting together pieces of wood that are, you have to make a 90-degree connection. And if you've ever done this by hand, and let's say you're brad nailing or screwing, and sometimes this board, it's not flush to the other board. So this little clamp here, I'll show you how quick it is to set it up here to put connections together. So let's say you're trying to put these boards here together. And using that clamp, I'm just holding all three pieces here with my hand temporarily. I have some spring clamps here, and the spring clamps allow me to hold the pieces of wood, and I'm able to put fasteners here, either brad nails, dowels, whatever you're wanting to use, and it's accurate, nice and flush. So these are really useful when you're making. I make a lot of furniture. And so these help me on making shelves, holding something at a 90 degree, especially like plywood. And I've only had this one clamp for a couple years, and every time I talk to myself, I'm like, I need to make like 4 more of these things, or 5 more, whatever. So today I'm making 6 more of these things. And so the way that I made this is I had some plywood laying around, and just to show you what I did is I took the plywood and I ripped it down. Let me see here, I'm going to give you the measurements here. So I ripped strips down to 2 and 5/16 of an inch. You can make them in whatever size you want. And then the length of the strips was approximately 2 feet. So that was able to give me all these pieces of wood here. So this clamp, the way that you put it together is three boards. So I have board number 1, board number 2, and then board number 3. To make board number 1, this guy, he is 9 inches. And then this one right here is number 2, it's 8 inches. And then the third board is 4 3/8 of an inch. The way that you see, there's a little kind of a triangle cutout. The way I have that is I use a lot of F-style clamps with that too, so it allows me to have enough clamping surface right here, and then also enough space right here. So I can put a clamp here, a clamp here, clamp here, clamp here, which is nice the way that I made it. It's you have plenty of surface for either spring clamps or F-style clamps, whatever kind of clamps. Sometimes I'll even use these little quick clamps here, just super fast. But anyway, to make this board, to make the 9 inch and the 8 inch and then this 4 3/8 inch, I went over here to my miter saw and I set up a stop block. So what I did is, on the plywood, this is just a little scrap piece, I went ahead and I measured out 9 inches. So on the 9 inches, went up to my miter saw, and I have a little fence right here so it won't allow my blade to go all the way down, and you'll see why here in just a moment. But anyway, I set it up at the 9. I got my stop block here, and I clamped my stop block here with a spring clamp or F-style clamp just to hold that. So I'm able to make repeatable cuts quickly, and I don't have to keep measuring. So then I did the 9 inch, and then I moved it into the 8 inch, and I did all those strips. And then I went into the 4. And on the 4, here's where I'm not the kind of person, I don't have my hand on the button anyway, but I'm not the kind of person that puts my hands anywhere near the blade. So always be careful. So for example, let's say I was cutting this at 4 inches. I'll grab a long piece of board and I'll put it kind of like at an angle here to where I apply pressure on the end, and then I make my cut. So always be careful when you're using a miter saw. So that's how I was able to do the pieces. If you also see the piece number 3 has a little bit of an angle here. The way I did that, that's at a 25-degree angle. So what I did here is I moved my miter saw over 25 degrees, and I made I put some masking tape down, and I made a reference point of where I want that cut to go right here on the board. But also just another added piece of safety. I had a 1/4 inch piece of plywood. I have a lot of these just laying around. So what I did is I took some double-sided tape and I put it on the edge here. And the way you do it, I'll just cut 2 pieces, put them down, and then take off the little blue side here, whatever way your tape looks. And then I stick it back here. And the reason I do that is because right here in the miter saw, there's a space here. And with this piece right here, there's no support. So this thing, I don't know if you've ever had this, but the wood goes back here and the blade's moving, and it just moves that piece, and it's a dangerous thing to do. So what you want to do is you want to have a fence back here temporarily. So what I did here is I went ahead and made my my cut, And then I already have my reference line here to make this. And then, using the longboard that I had just showed you, I put pressure on the edge here. Or if you can see, the blade is not on this piece of wood, but I'm able to apply force, downward pressure, and I'm able to make my cut, and my hand is nowhere near the blade, so it's over here putting pressure down on the piece of wood. So just some safety things on the miter saw. But now you see how I got that little piece. Then you'll see how it gets put together really quick here. So what I did here, I have 2 screws on this side, and if you can kind of see, I put this together in a few minutes when I first made it, but I wanted to make these holes a little bit more uniform. So what I did on the drill press, I went ahead and, just for demonstration purposes, I'll show you here. I took just a random piece of wood, or of the plywood that I'm using, and I see if you can see that here. Yep. All right, here we go. So I just made a reference mark of the thickness of that wood, and then just by eyeball, I went where I want that hole to be in the middle there. So what I did here is I just said, okay, I want a hole right around there, and I made a line here. I drilled down. You flip your board over, and then you make a line on this side. So the cool thing about that is now I'm able to make repeatable drill holes that look nice and uniform. So that's basically, if you just take some masking tape, make yourself a little line, and show you where you need to put that. So that's how I was able to do piece number 1. I'm going to move this back here so you can see. So piece number 1, we've got it cut to size, we've got our holes drilled, and we're going to attach it to piece number 2. To make this nice and flush, I'm always all about trying to keep it flush. I have for example here, let's see here. I'll take this little piece of wood here, and I'll clamp it to the side of piece number 2. I'll use an F-style clamp here. You'll see why in just a moment. And in doing that, I'm able to connect this piece right here, but it keeps the wood nice and flush. So I'll put my my screws in here, and the screws that I use the Craig screws. Cool thing about these is on the shaft here, it doesn't have threads all the way, so as it tightens, it's able to squeeze the wood together. And that's why I use a lot of Craig screws, or Craig pipe screws. So once you have that attached, you'll have what's the L shape. And then to attach this piece, let's see here. And all I'm doing is I'm trying to give myself references to where I don't have to drill by hand. You can do it by hand, but I'd rather just make it to where I have a stop showing where I need to put the holes at. So to put the holes on here, you're going to need a screw that goes in through here, and then a screw that goes in through the bottom up to fasten this to the pieces here. So what I did here is I just put myself a little reference mark of where I want the hole to be drilled, and then I did the same thing on this one where I want the hole to be drilled. So the way you do it is just grab the board, screw these together with 2 screws, and then you grab this board, and then you screw in here, and then you screw in here, and then it'll make it a nice 90 degree. To make sure that your saw is at 90, I will show you what I do there. With my hand not on the trigger, and I'll go ahead and take off this temporary fence just so you see here. I'll move it over to the 0 or to 90. And then I'll just use an engineer square, a short one, just to make sure that my cuts are all at 90. That's just the way to, before you begin to cut, you want to make sure that the blade is at a 90. And then if you want to get really crazy, you can make sure that the bevel is at a 90 as well. So hopefully that helps somebody out. If you have any questions, please put some comments in the video, and we'll see you soon.